Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Pointy Not Sharp. Today we're taking a look at the feldmesser 78, more commonly known as the Glock knife. Now, unsurprisingly, these were manufactured by Glock, and they were manufactured from 1978 until, well, they're still making them commercially today. Initially, they were made for the Austrian military and a couple of other contracts as well, like Denmark and two or three others, a couple in Asia, I believe, like South Korea and Japan. But these days, I believe they're mainly made commercially. And they're still used very, very widely. Like you look at footage from Ukraine, Africa, the Middle East, and you don't have to look terribly far to see one of these sticking off the front of someone's vest. So, a little bit of history about the Glock knife. I absolutely love any Austrian history. It's always very fascinating to me. All their manufacturing history, all their designers, Mannlicher, Glock, all of them. It's great. Anyway, so these were designed by my main man, Gaston. And, Gaston Glock founded his company in 1963. And initially, it was just him and the wife based out of the garage with second-hand injection molding gear. And they were just making bits and pieces for everything and anything. So they were making like rods for curtains. They were making link for machine guns. They were making training grenades for the Austrian army as well. So all kinds of interesting things. And at the time, he was based out of Deutsch Wagwam in Lower Austria, where he was living. Now, Austria during the Cold War was neutral. So they had to supply all of their own gear. They couldn't rely on, or they couldn't purchase gear from Russia or the West because they didn't want to be seen to be taking sides. So they produced and designed all of their own small arms and did a fantastic job of it. And whatever they couldn't domestically produce, they sourced from other neutral countries like Sweden and Switzerland. So in the late 1970s or mid-1970s, Austria were developing and adopted the Steyr AUG, or the STG-77. And initially during the trial period, they wanted a bayonet to go with it. So they designed their own. During the trial period, they designed what we have here, which is the Ziegler 77. Now, this was ultimately not successful. In the end, they went with the Carl Icahn KCB 77, which is a fantastic blade. However, after the trial and they'd adopted the Steyr STG 77, they decided they needed a feldmesser or field knife. So a tender was submitted, and I believe it was pushed pretty heavily by their special forces and Alpine soldiers, and they were the ones who really wanted it. I think their special forces were called the Jagdgewehr Commando or Hunting Command or something like that. Feel free to correct me down below. I'm probably wrong. So Glock who was already had a couple of military contracts doing link and training grenades and things like that, minor little pieces. He tried his hand at making a knife, and he did an absolutely fantastic job of it. So as you can see, it took heavy inspiration from the Ziegler 77. They look almost identical, but in terms of manufacturing, they are very, very different. So we'll start with the scabbard. They've got the same overall shape and dimensions, and I'm sure that Gaston got his hands on one of these and just copied it for his injection molding process. However, you'll notice the injection mold seam that runs down the center runs down the front, whether on the Ziegler 77 it runs down the side. So obviously these were not the same batch. Plus the Glock knife has this clip on the front, this protrusion on the back, which I assume is for a leg strap. I can't think of another use for that. And then it also has the plastic belt hanger at the rear, whether this is very, very different. And Glock also has the Glock logo imprinted all over this thing, while the old Ziegler 77 just has Ziegler. So as you can see, there was a bit of difference there. And then in terms of the handles, they look very, very similar, and they're very close, but the dimensions are very just finely out. There's a bit of difference in the clipping attachment on the handle. I think the Glock knife is slightly longer and a slightly different shape. Other than that, extremely similar. Anyway, I'll push that to the side. We're talking about this one. So Glock submitted his knife, and it was successful and pretty much immediately adopted. And it doubles as a bayonet because, like the Zetler 77, it has the plug in the rear and the attachment for their special, their own type of attachment to the Steyr, the STG 77. That's an attachment that you can't actually see. I can't even find any good photos of it. I can just find one photo of it mounted to the rifle. I can't find any of what it actually looks like. So it's not something that was ever actually used. But these were made to double as bayonets, not that they ever did. And from what I've read, they make absolutely fantastic throwing knives. So on top of these, they also made commemorative versions more recently anyway. So there's a couple of 40th anniversary ones. They have markings on the blade, and they're numbered 1 to 780. They came out in 2018. And they also did a 25th anniversary of the Glock Sport Shooting Foundation, or GSSF, in 2016. But I don't know how many of those were made. I haven't seen any photos. I don't know if they're numbered on the blade, but I wouldn't be surprised. And these days you can pick up commercial ones. The commercial ones have different markings to the originals. So this is one of the original ones. If you're not familiar with markings, I'll jump into that in a minute, but the Glock logo changed in about 1982. So with the commercial versions of this feldmesser, they are incredibly cheap these days. Like here in Australia, you can pick them up for $70. Very, very affordable. They come in a range of different colours, and they're absolutely fantastic. And a couple of years after this one came out, there was another version, and that was called the Feldmesser 81, and that was heavily influenced by what they already had. The only difference is it has a sawback in the back of the blade, and I intend to pick one of those up pretty soon. So I haven't decided on which one I want because they come in a range of pretty colours. I've already got the drab olive here, so I'll have to pick something else. All that aside, we'll jump into the construction, and there's a lot to say about this. It's quite interesting. The actual construction is fantastic. Very, very high quality for what you pay. So the steel is a SAE 1095 carbon steel, and it's got a hardness of 55 HRL. I'm not a terrible technical guy. That's the information I saw online, so if that means something to you, that's what it is. But from what I've read, essentially that means that the steel is not brittle, so it's not super, super hard. And it will lose an edge after a little while. However, it is very easy to sharpen again. And that's ideal for a knife because it means it won't snap, it won't chip, it won't break. And it's got a little bit of flexibility to it. It just means you have to sharpen it every now and then, which is not terribly annoying. And the finish, it's a finish I haven't come across before. It's electrophotonic, I think that's how it said, coated. Essentially, that's just it's kind of like an electrolysis process, or not really electrolysis, but they stick it in a fluid and they use it as the anode or cathode, I can't really remember, and they use it to add a material to the surface, which is supposed to be corrosion resistant. So, cool little process there, and apparently very, very cheap. The polymer on the handle and the scabbard, this was developed prior to the Glock pistols, and it's actually a softer polymer than what you find on the Glocks. I'm not terribly certain why he's done that, but they do scratch a little bit easier, but they're a little bit softer, I guess. So that's just how they are. Then we'll jump into the actual blade itself. So we've got a little clip point on the end there. We've got a slight false edge, which, while not sharpened, is certainly quite fine. And they've got a true edge running down the length of the blade. The blade is quite thick, considering how thick it is this way. So make a fantastic little dagger. And then we've got little quillin sweeping back there. And this end up here is dual purpose. So it's both a bottle opener and it's also like a muzzle ring attachment. So when you attach this to a rifle, this will press to the base of the muzzle ring, being a 22mm Stanag muzzle device. Then our grips are reasonably simple, just a polymer grip. We've got a hole running straight through there. I'm not certain what that is because You can't see through it, so I don't think it's a lanyard loop. Maybe it's to assist with removing the plug. I don't know. If you know, comment below. And then we have our plug. This one's stuck in there pretty good, and I don't have a fantastic tool for getting it out without scratching it. And because it's not mine, I don't want to scratch it, so I'm going to leave it in. But you remove that, and you've got your hole in the back, which is the connection for the bayonet. To use it as a bayonet to attach it to the rifle. And the scabbard, as I've already shown you, the only thing I haven't really shown you is how it connects. So just have this little device here, and it's ramped, and just pops over and locks into that surface there. Easy. And it goes in both ways. Awesome. As I said earlier, these come in a range of different colors. So the initial contract back in the 70s and 80s, they came in olive drab, which is what we have here. They came in black, grey, and a desert sand. Now the new commercial ones, they come in a couple of colors, and they're pretty much the same. They still come in the olive drab, which now we call battlefield green for some reason. The black and the grey didn't change, and then they also come in a brown, which we call flat dark earth for some reason. I don't know. Finally, we'll jump into the markings on these. So this is one of the originals, so pre-82, before they changed the Glock logo. And you'll find the Glock logo all over this thing. So first off, you'll find it on the side of the scabbard just here, and that's the Circle G with a Glock inside. Out to come. And then you find it here, focus please, in the side of the handle. Same logo. I'm just making sure I haven't missed any on the scabbard. No, I have not. And then the only other markings we have here are on the ricasso. So what we have is a B, a circle with an upside down triangle in it, and a H, and that's the top line. My understanding is the circle with the upside down triangle is like a acceptance mark for the Austrian army. Underneath that we have the Glock symbol and 78 being the model. So that's how you spot an original one. Now the new ones are a little bit different. The markings on the scabbard and handle will be the modern Glock logo, which is more blocky and square. And then on the ricasso, you'll have 3 lines. The first line will be made in, the second line will be Austria in all capitals, and the third line will be the blocky Glock symbol, and then next to it, it'll have the model number, and that'll either be 78 for the original, or 81 if it has a sawback. Now, while these field knives / bayonets are incredibly cheap, for some reason there's a lot of fakes out there. They're all through eBay, and they don't have the markings, or they have just weird markings that make no sense, so that's how you spot those. Anyway, that's all I really have to say about the Glock knife or the Feldmesser 78. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I'm going to be buying a modern commercial one for myself, an 81, in the next coming days. And that's going to be my new field camping knife that I take out, replacing my Uton. Incredibly light, and so many videos online of people putting these through just the most punishing tests, and they always seem to come out on top and remain relatively sharp. So I can only imagine how they do when you give them a decent sharpen. Anyway guys, if I've made any mistakes or left anything out, please feel free to comment below, and thanks for watching.